Today is February 19th, 2025. Meeting is now open at 3:59 p.m. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the county boardroom. For roll call, we've got Jonathan Davison.
Present.
Randy Bennett.
Here.
George Forrest is absent. Diane Bruce absent. And I am here, Melissa Kimmerling. Let's see, item 1, public comments. Carrie, do we have anyone wanting to speak during the open comments portion of the meeting?
No one has indicated they need to speak.
All right, since we have none, we will proceed to item 2 on the agenda, approval of the minutes of the January 15th, 2025 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes of January 15th, 2025.
Okay.
I second.
All right, motion by Bennett, second by Davidson. We'll vote.
Three, 4, 2 absent, motion carries.
All right, item 3 is to discuss the annual report. So Carrie will give an overview of the 2024 annual report.
Sorry, I was having technical difficulties there. Okay, every year Human Resources gathers statistics, so we do have all the years prior to 2020. They're just, the cells have been hidden, so we could actually read the entire report. So this year, this past year, 2024, we had a total of, or have a total of 684 full-time employees, and that include 30 plus hours and on up. New hires, which includes temporary, so we just got through an election, so that's why our temporary employees are a little bit higher than they have been previously. We had 137 temporary employees. We processed 137 new hires, and full orientation, legal documents, and benefits and roles was 91. With the temporary employees, we don't have to go through the whole full orientation. Job applicants, we had 2,920. Positions posted was 113. We estimated that to be about 120. And testing, which does not include the sheriff's office testing or our 911, our emergency communications testings, we had 2 on site, and then, or is that 2 sessions? Those would be 2. Yeah, 2. Okay. Job descriptions, we had a total of 4 new job descriptions. We updated a total of 15, and we had 1, we updated a physical demand evaluation. We are also in the middle of working with Gallagher, which we've talked about, working with our compensation. They're also reviewing all of our job descriptions too, so we will have a lot more updates for next year. Interviews where the candidates were contacted and scheduled, we had 565. Interviews with the candidates that actually came was 452. And then interview questions designed, we had redesigned 20 of them. With our benefit offering, we have 684 eligible employees. Of those, 555 are registered or take our health insurance, and 662 take our dental insurance. The reason being is if it's a single coverage, they get it for free. So, FSA, we have 205 employees that were eligible, took the FSA enrollments for a total of $443,516.32. And then moving on to workers' comp, we paid out a total last year of $133,755,000. It's down a little bit from $188,000 of the year prior. And we had a total of 65 injuries. And then our DOT and our alcohol screens, we do a total of 20 DOT drug randoms. We do those every quarter for the DOT responsibilities we have there. 8 are also included in those alcohol randoms. We usually do 2 per quarter. Sworn and non-sworn are not having randoms, and we are currently updating the alcohol and drug non-DOT policy. Separation of service, which includes all employees, we had 99 total. Of those, 12 were retirements, 67 were just separations where there's another job. Non-voluntary separations were 8. Other positions could be a layoff, position eliminated, medical reason was 1. And for some reason, I didn't put the number on the processed exit interviews, and I will update that before it goes to the final version. We have 53 exit interviews this past year. It's went up since last year. We've really tried to make a bigger push on having those filled out, and we really pushed to have all the employees we send them with their exit in, or with their separation packets. And that's not separation packets. Some people think that's just for involuntary terminated employees. We have a separation packet for everyone. So if they retire, they know who to contact for health insurance, who to contact for their retirement. So we keep them, so they have as much communication as possible. The reasons we were given is 1, for terminations, 1 unfortunately passed away, 8 were involuntary, 67 resignations, and 13 retirements. Employee relations, we had our benefits fair again this year, and we had 21 vendors. We did not track the attendees because we had all employees that were invited, but we did have a nice turnout this year. And then we had the mammogram van or truck from Methodist come on site, and we had a total of 26 employees take part in that. Years of service recognitions, that is up because our new county administrator really encouraged us to have us redo the policy. So people get recognized for like 1 year of service, then 5 years, and it's closer in time. It's like a keychain they get there for the first year. 5 years is the Buffalo, I believe it is. So people are getting their recognitions a lot earlier. So hopefully that will help with retention also. And then with the employee appreciation programs, we just did the Employee Appreciation Week, which is for all employees, and we will do that again here the first week in May. So, wellness was discontinued in 2024, so we don't have a report on that. Moving down to legal complaints and grievances, we had 5, and 1 actually went to a hearing. NEO, EEOC charges, we had 1. And Personal Policy Board hearing, we had 1 that was a grievance from the corrections office that went to a hearing. No subpoenas and investigations, HR assisted with 9 of them.
Ooh.
So, with our PRR and our PPM, the PRR is for the classified employees, PPM is for the unclassified employees, and right now those are under being completely revised, as we'll be looking or going over later today. But anyway, so that's just giving a list as far as what has been advised or revised so far. Then moving down to our training, we now have an online training through our NeoGov system, which is our HRIS system. It also stores all of our employee files and forms also. And so for defensive driving, we had 57 people complete the online version of the defensive driving. Every 2 years, that increases because NERMA, we have to run a background on people who drive more than 4 times a year for the county. We have to run a background on their driver's license, and they also have to make sure they retake the defensive driving class. So that'll be higher this next year. And then harassment and safety training, that is an annual class they take through the NeoGov system, and it is 564 people total took it. And then we also had 2 people that had mandatory EAP referrals. Educational reimbursement, our supplemental, which is our CPM, which is a Certified Public Manager program through UNO. It's a 1-year long course. We only had 1 person go through it in 2024. Good news is for 2025, we have 5 people that have started the program. So hopefully we'll even get to increase that more moving forward. Right now, we just have 1 person working on an associate's, 1 working on a bachelor degree, 2 for a master's. We have partnered with Metro Community College because DOT changed their regulations on a CDL and how to obtain a CDL. So we had 4 people go through the program through Metro from our Public Works Department, and then we don't have anyone working on a degree higher than a master's. Does anyone have questions?
No questions.
Okay. Okay,
And this item doesn't require any board action, correct, Carrie?
correct.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. Yeah, thank you for the review of that 2024 annual report. So we'll move on to item 4, discuss and make recommendations on revisions to personnel rules and regulations, Rule 3, Regulation 1, classified appointment. Mary Davis, HR Director.
Good afternoon. So as with the Rule 3, Regulations 1 and 2, we took those policies and we combined them into one. The policy is now called types of appointments and employment categories. When you take a look at that policy, you'll see that the changes that were made, we adhered to the County Civil Service Act on that. And the appointments are divided into a little bit differently than they were in the past. We now have a probationary appointment. So when a person is newly hired, it's called a probationary appointment. Once they complete their probationary period, then they become a tenured employee. So that probationary appointment goes away, and now they're a tenured employee. There's also language in there for a temporary appointment, and that is one that's a limited time period, not to exceed 1 year. We've got an emergency appointment, which is limited to 30 days, a 30-day emergency appointment, and that's in case, the county has, if there's a weather emergency or something happens, we can bring people on very quickly, and their employment would last about 30 days at the most. A provisional appointment is one that lasts not to exceed 6 months. And then we have what we call a casual appointment. And basically, this is really somebody that works when the need arises. They could float from department to department. Currently, we have a couple of employees that will help out other departments when there is a need, whether it's for an extended illness or, they just have a special project that needs to be done. So there's no guarantee of hours of work or of work, to be honest. Okay. And then there's a new section on this policy called employment categories, and we've never had this in the personnel rules and regs before, but I think it's something that's important. It talks about the FLSA job classifications and how employees are categorized as either exempt or non-exempt from overtime, so we explain that. And then we also have our regular county job categories. So you have your regular full-time employees that work 40 hours a week or 80 hours a pay period. You have your regular part-timers who are assigned to a regular part-time schedule. And then our other appointments would be our temp, emergency, provisional, casual employees. They could be full-time or part-time. So we will start tracking those in the system like that as well. Do you have any questions on that?
Mary, are there any differences in the rights or responsibilities of an employee during a probationary period versus when they become tenured? Any differences in how rules apply to them or due process, anything like that?
Sure. Once an employee becomes a tenured employee, during their probationary period, they don't have any appeal rights and things of that nature. They can be terminated for any or no reason, as long as it's not unlawful, right? So when they become tenured employees, they don't receive any extra benefits and things of that nature. They'll accrue extra vacation as their time goes on, but they also have appeal rights. So for disciplinary actions, so they can appeal, to their department head, elected official, and then ultimately to the personnel policy board for that.
So probationary employees would not ever come before
They
the
don't
board.
have those appeal rights, correct?
Okay, wonderful.
This does not imply any change in the selection criteria or process for those probationary employees, correct?
No.
Mary, were you contacted by anyone to request to make comments related to this?
No. And I should also note, all of these policy changes today, we have gone through the advisory committees as well, the Employee Advisory Committee and the Management Group too.
I got a question on page 4 for part-time.
Page 4 of the red line.
Yeah, the red line.
Okay.
Section 2, part-time, regular part-time employees. It's listed there 40 hours. Should that be 30? 30 plus? I mean,
So Sarpy County, we identify a full-time employee, you work 40 hours a week, right? Part-time is anything less than 40. However, if you do work 30 hours or more per week, you do receive health insurance benefits.
okay,
Yeah.
Okay. So anyone less than 40, less than 80 in a pay period.
it's classified as part-time, but they'll get full-time, or basically,
They would get the health insurance, the insurance benefits that a regular full-time employee would get, but they wouldn't accrue the same amount of vacation and things of that nature.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions from board members? And Mary, you said no one came forward to make comments, correct?
Correct.
All right, so no one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule. Therefore, no comment period was provided. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the edits to Rule 3, Reg 1 as submitted.
I'll second.
All right. Motion by Davidson, second by Bennett. And, all right, time to vote.
Three, four, one, or two absent, motion carries.
Okay. Moving on to item 5 on the agenda, discuss and make recommendations on revisions to Personnel Rules and Regulations Rule 4, Regulation 1, Job Transfers. Mary?
So Rule 4, Regulations 1 through 3 have been combined into one policy. And we are labeling this job transfers. Once an employee is hired with Sarpy County, they have the ability to transfer to different positions. They might want to transfer to another department. And so transfers are really completed in a number of different ways. You have a lateral transfer where there's no significant changes in responsibility, pay, status, anything like that. And then we also have, we have what we call a promotional transfer. And this is where you're going to see that one of the biggest changes on this policy is our definition of a promotional transfer. And what we have learned, so our current policy is that promotional transfers, if you apply for and you are awarded a position and that the maximum pay rate is higher than what you currently receive, it's considered a promotion. Okay? So it doesn't matter if you're progressing along your regular career path. It's just, if the job pays higher, it's considered a promotion in our current system. What we have to remember about that is that the County Civil Service Act says that if an employee is promoted and they don't successfully complete their probationary period with that promotion, they can go back to their current job or their previous job. And that's fine when you have departments that have those promotional
Right.
opportunities, whether it's, in 911, you could go from dispatcher to senior to lead. In corrections, the same kind of thing, corrections officer to supervisor, lieutenant, those kinds of things. So when an employee, if they're not successful, they would go back and they would promote somebody else. There's always that room. Well, the way it's currently defined, if we have an employee that, let's say, worked in corrections and decided to apply for a job in public works, for an example, they get that job. And if that was higher in pay, then, and that person didn't work out, we've got to hold those jobs open.
Yeah.
And we don't believe that was the intent of that language.
Because it'd be holding it up six months a year. It's a long time, right?
It's a long time. It's a long time. So, so when we look at what true definition is of a promotion, you look at, it has to do with wages too, but it also has to do, you're progressing along your career path, right? Somebody might want a job change. They might want a career change, but it might not necessarily be a promotion. In my opinion, if somebody wants to go from public works, they want to be a 911 dispatcher, which has happened, they're making a career change, right? And it's not necessarily a promotion, because what happens is the promotion, if it's considered a promotion, you add 5% to their wages, and then you place them on the pay plan. And what happens is they would they could leapfrog over employees that had been there for a while, that had experience in that job. So that is, part of the reasons why we'd like to change that definition of what a promotion is, when you think about that kind of thing. Let's see. We have temporary transfers, and sometimes employees might be transferred to another department just on a temporary basis because they need some help. We had that during COVID with the election office. We had some people transfer over there to help out. It doesn't happen very often, but there's just language in there to assist with that if we need it. And then this voluntary transfer, this is the new piece too. And this is where it's basically, if an employee wants to apply for different jobs, that's great. We encourage that. We want that to happen. If it's initiated by the employee, it's considered a voluntary transfer if it doesn't follow that promotional path, right? So it would be, it's initiated by the employee. They might want to follow a different career path. It might result in an increase to pay, no change in pay, or a decrease, depending on what they apply for and what is in the best interest of all parties, right? So we remove that expectation on wages, and what we will recommend when we get to the compensation policy for these transfers is that HR will sit down with the receiving department head if they want to make an offer to an employee, and we will see where other employees are located on the pay plan and make that decision based on the best interest of, like I said, all parties. So, and we'll talk about that at another time when we bring our compensation policy forward. And then we have an involuntary transfer, which could be due to position elimination, job restructure, a disciplinary demotion, that kind of thing. Sometimes we have employees that just say, I want to take a step back for a few years and do something different. But because their wages are, if they want to apply for a job where their wages are lower, right, it would be considered a demotion. And it goes in their record as a demotion, Well, if that's initiated by the employee and they just want to do something different, they're just changing positions. So we want to recognize that too.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. On the eligibility section, section 2, we had a lot of conversation with this with our management group and our employee group. There was a lot of restrictions in our eligibility section as to who could apply for different positions. You had to be through with your probationary period, no discipline, no suspension. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head exactly what all those things were, but after much conversation, when it comes down to it, if the person is qualified for the job, they should be able to apply. Whether they get hired or not, that's another story. But they should always have that option to apply. And so that's the changes that we made to that. Okay. And then as far as section 3 goes, the newest language or something that is different, significantly different than it has been in the past, is there's language that allows for when an employee makes a voluntary transfer. Typically, right now, if they had any comp time on the books, that would be paid out by the sending department head elected official, right? Comes out of their budget. So there's language in here that talks about the comp time, and then all but 80 hours of vacation will be paid out as well, unless the receiving department is fine with it. We have some departments that are completely fine with accepting the comp times, accepting all of the vacation. And then we have other departments that, might have a little bit of an issue with it. So, and that's because, they come in, if you're moving to a public safety position, you've got a year of training. And so if you have all this comp time and vacation on the books, it could cause a problem.
So in an instance like that, they would be allowed, if they voluntarily apply and they're hired, they move over and the training requirements would say, like, we could only afford you could only be away from the job for 1 week or something in that year because we really need you to bear down. Then they'd get a check for the difference between what was allowed and what they had accrued.
Well, they would get paid out all but 80 hours of their vacation.
All but 80 hours.
Yeah, they would keep the 80 hours on the books and then continue to accrue while they're there at their years of service.
So they're not harmed in either instance.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
For the individuals that you were saying career change, right? They move over. If in that situation, do they have a probationary period since it's almost like you hired someone completely new?
They do.
The difference is they don't have the guarantee fall back into the previous position.
Correct.
That's what you're trying to change is
Yep.
we still have a probationary period. We are not holding the position in the other department open
Correct.
in accordance with the Civil Service Act anymore.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a risk and understanding that they would understand that in making that career change, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And then Rule 4, Reg 4 is what we call detail assignments. And that is just a recommendation that we're going to take that section and we're going to move that to the compensation policy when we get that all put together. So all the compensation is in one spot.
Any discussion,
Any
board
questions?
members?
Pretty straightforward.
I move to approve Rule 4, Reg 1, 2, and 3 combined and edited and submitted.
Hold 1 sec on that motion before we vote. Did anyone approach you, Mary, to make comments on this?
No.
Okay, no, we did. Okay, so we'll take Jonathan Davidson's motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion by Davidson, second by Bennett. No one requested to appear before the board and give their views. We will vote.
Three, 4, 2 absent, motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item 6. Discuss and make recommendations on the revision to personnel rules and regulations, Rule 5, Regulation 1, probationary period. Mary?
Okay, so Rule 5 has 2 regulations, one for your initial probationary period and then one for your, what they call trial probationary period, so if you transfer to another position. So we're combining that into one reg. Some of the things that we need to remember on this is that, just kind of keep in the back of your mind, County Civil Service states that a probationary period, when somebody is initially hired, their probationary period cannot exceed 1 year. Okay, so we have that we need to think about. And then, again, once an employee completes their probationary period, as a new hire, they become tenured. And now they have appeal rights. Okay? So with new hires, current language says that the probationary period is up to the a department head or elected official. And we are recommending a 6-month probationary period across the board with the exception of public safety. Our 911, corrections, and sheriff's office staff, they have a year probation just because there's a lot of things that go into their jobs that they need an extended time period for. Majority of our departments currently are 6 months, so it's not, the departments aren't going to see a real big change in that. But it'll make HR's life easier if we just say 6 months, so then we can kind of keep track of that. And then within that 6 month, with the 6 month probationary period, we also have the ability to extend it up to an additional 6 months if we need to. And sometimes we've had to do that for, new hires that just need a little bit more time rather than, cut them loose. We'll grant them a little bit more time to see if they can grasp, their position or their job duties. So there's language that talks about that extension period, and then also the separation. So as we had been talking about, if you're a new hire in your original probationary period, you don't have appeal rights if the department head elected official chooses to let you go. Okay? And that's pretty standard, So then we have probationary periods for those employees that transfer. So the first thing that comes to mind is, number one, are they a tenured employee or not? Right? Because if they're tenured, they'll have appeal rights regardless. So just because we put them in another probationary period doesn't mean that we could fire them without cause, right? So so how are we going to take care of that? So basically, in a nutshell, when an employee transfers, if they transfer to a public safety agency, they can have a year, up to a year probationary period. Again, if they're tenured and they don't work out, we're going to have to figure that out because they're going to have appeal rights.
That's kind of what I was asking about previously is would an employee be disadvantaged from doing a career transfer if they were tenured, but they would still have tenure.
They would still have
a probationary period with a career change.
Yep.
Okay.
So if a transferred employee is not meeting the expectations of the new position, what can happen? And this policy basically outlines that. We can extend their probationary period, because sometimes they're learning a new position. They just might need a little bit more time. And so there's no harm in doing that. If it's a promotional transfer, again, that's where that definition of promotion comes in. If it's a promotional transfer, we can revert them back to their original position. If it's a voluntary or involuntary transfer, they might have an opportunity to go back to their original position if there's a vacancy and if the department head and elected official agree to bring them back, right? They have the ability to apply for any other open positions that might be available in the county, if that works for them. And if they are actively seeking employment, we can kind of figure that out, right? Or an employee, might be terminated. And again, if they are terminated, then that's where it falls, with HR. We have to have those conversations with department heads, elected official, when they accept transferred employees that, it's very important that if they're not successful in their probationary period, we need to know why, document why, and because if they are let go at some point in time, then they have the right to, appeal to the Personnel Policy Board. So they still have those protections, and I think the revisions that we made make that a little clearer, for the employees, especially when they're deciding whether or not they want to voluntarily transfer.
Right, because you could have potentially had some resignations from individuals who needed some sort of change, but were like, I'm going to start fresh anyway. All of my years here are going to go away. If I make this transfer, I might as well leave the county, where this would, incentivize them to stay within the county and
Yeah.
look for other opportunities. And
Yeah, and we definitely encourage employees to, if they want to make a career change or if they're interested in other things, we want them to apply.
Sure.
And hopefully the county can provide them, some opportunities that they might not be able to find in, the department that they're currently in. So,
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet. Mary, were you contacted by anyone to make comments?
no.
Any board discussion?
Under section C of the transfer, number 2, that covers a promotional transfer, but doesn't necessarily say that it's a promotion. They're kind of different, are they not? The difference between a promotion and a promotional transfer.
They're, for this purpose, they mean the same
They
thing.
mean the same?
Yeah,
Okay.
because they're either changing positions or departments, and it would be a promotion.
So it says here, under accordance to state law, the employee shall be reverted back to the previous position. But if they transfer to a different department, that previous position may not be open.
Right, so this is where that comes into play. So with our new, we've got that Gallagher study going on, right? And so we do have some positions that are, I'll just use, this is not a for sure job title, I'm just using this as an example. So let's say we have a clerk 1, 2, 3 series, right? And they're a clerk 1 in the county clerk's office, and they're applying for, there's a clerk 2 position open in the county attorney's office, and they apply for that and they are awarded that. They're still transferring departments, but that is considered a promotion because it's along their career path. It's in their job family, if you will. So that's where a change of jobs, or I know it gets confusing, but that's how that works. And we'll get, when we get our new classification system, it'll hopefully make a lot more sense.
Great.
But really, in our clerical series is probably where we'll see most of that. The other positions are pretty standalone.
Good. And hiring managers will be well-versed in
Yes.
counseling employees through
Yes,
the
we will.
understanding of those things.
We definitely will do that.
And if they're not, the policy puts a bonus on the HR group in
Yeah.
every case. That's written in every policy.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Since no one requested to appear before the board and give their views on the proposed rule, so no comment period was provided. After board discussion, do we have a motion?
I move to approve Rule 5 Reg 1 revisions as submitted and to move Rule 5 Reg 2 to PPB 2-1925 as suggested. 'Cause that's the other part that you did. Rule 5 Reg 2 is to move.
Oh, yeah.
To Reg 1, yeah, combined.
That's also just being moved. So it's being,
That's
my motion is to accept this as submitted with part of this being moved out.
Being the moved out. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Again, we have motion by Davidson, second by Bennett. Do I need to repeat the whole motion, Carrie, again? Since Jonathan did. Okay, wonderful.
So you can say it. Done. Pass.
Randy, your vote isn't showing.
Yeah, because it's not on here.
We didn't have one yet.
Oh, there it goes.
3-4, 2 absent, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, that's all for item 6. So item 7 is adjournment.
I'll move to adjourn.
All right, we're switching spots. Motion by Bennett
Second.
and second by Davidson. All right, meeting adjourned at 4:39 p.m.
We need to vote on that.
Oh, vote first.
3-4, 2 absent, motion carries.
Meeting adjourned at 4:39 still. Thank you.
Excellent.